Welcome back to Unfinished Business. This is the podcast where we have candid conversations about what it really looks like to build a business from the ground up, how success gets defined along the way, and the lessons that it takes to get there, and the work that's never quite finished. I'm joined today by Bree Proffitt. She is the co-owner of Blueprint Fitness Lab, where she and her husband, Daniel, help people cut through the confusion and finally create clear, sustainable path to feeling better, stronger, and more in control of their health. Bree, I am so excited to have this discussion with you, and thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having with me. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Well, I want to start with just a little bit of background on you before we get into the way that you serve your clients and how this business came to be. But what were you doing before Blueprint Fitness Lab ever existed?
So, for many years, I had been on full-time staff here at a local church, and I was the head of all of our marketing and communications. And about 3 years ago, it was in 2023, my kids were entering school, and I'd been a full-time working mom for my entire career. The whole since I had babies, I worked full-time. And in 2023, when all three of my kids were going to be heading to school, my husband and I just felt like it was time for me to kind of slow down and to free up some time and space, both, in actual time and then in mental and emotional capacity to be able to be with my kids on a different level. And at first that didn't quite make sense to me because I friends that I had known for the most part who had worked and then stayed home, their at home season was when their kids were really little. And then when their kids were going back into school is when they typically would pick up working again. And so I felt like this is backwards. My kids are going to school. So I was ready to go harder, do more and work even more. And I felt like, okay, we got some capacity freed up. And we just felt like, no, our kids need me specifically in a different way as they're going to school. And so we made the move for me to step back from my full-time role and go very part-time. I quickly, immediately was able to see that the kids really did and do need me in a very different way in this season than they did when we were changing diapers and feeding them and all the things that are required from that early season. Nutrition coaching was not on my bingo card. It was not something that I ever imagined myself doing, but it's partly that step back from working full time that opened the door for this business to develop and the desire for coaching to grow.
Tell me more about what that season did look like. Showing up for your kids in a different capacity. I know my kids are a little older than yours, but putting it in something that I can remember very well is that I spent most of my life in the car and no one prepared me for that, and how that relates to what you do. I'm curious what your experience was like in particular with the family meal planning, because so much of our life, we had 5 children and so many of them were in sports and we were always on the go and it felt like we were eating meals on our dashboard. So I'm curious, did you start to have that similar experience? And if so, where was your mindset around nutrition and food and how that related to your family in the busy thick of life with children?
Yeah. So honestly, my oldest is in middle school and he went into seventh grade this year. And people had told me, whoever they is, they had told me when you hit middle school and middle school athletics, that's when things get crazy. And I was kind of like, okay. I don't have much context for that or anything, but okay. And then it hit this year and I was not prepared. It was the next level busy that I thought that I knew, but really you can't know until you're in it and you're doing it. So for us, it was the early morning practices and the after school activities, and then having our other two kids and just doing one individual sport or extracurricular activity. That's all it took to fill our calendar. And this is the first year that I have felt the taxi service, or like I am Uber. And so it is this year in particular has really caused us and caused me, and I'm thankful to have had the space to think about and process it. Because when I was working full time, I was planning meals, I had dinner prepped and ready to go. So it was a level of busy, but this season with our kids is very different. And so there are the days where I still, do my meal planning. I do my meal planning on Saturday. I do my grocery pickup on Sunday, and then I prep a little bit. I'm not a big meal prepper. I don't do bulk cooking. I like to keep it really, really simple. And there are days where, we pick up the kids around 4, and then someone has something at 6 o'clock, and that's not going to be done until 8 or 8:30. So what are we going to do? I am, I mean, I am having dinner ready at 4:30, and we are eating some dinner at the house, so I can know that my kids are getting some good real food, and it requires an extra level of playing effort on my part, but it's a worthy investment to me to do that. And so we're eating a really early dinner and then coming home at 8:30 and having a snack versus trying to, or we might take some things on the go if it makes sense, but that's a lot of what we're doing is still trying to prioritize a family meal around the table, which is one of our values. It's really important to us that our kids are eating whole, healthy foods prepared at home for the most part. We do our Chick-fil-A run throughs for sure, but then we're also not eating so late and then sending our body an energy signal like, okay, we're going to eat and fuel up at 8:30, but it's almost time to go to bed. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of what we're doing right now in this season, knowing that what I just laid out will work for this short season, and then we'll need to adapt and figure it out again. But what stays consistent is the values and then making decisions about meals and family planning and our schedule based on those values.
Yeah. Bree, before we start diving into the business itself, I want you to speak directly to that mom that you are now finding yourself to be. And you had said earlier that, this slowing down and being there, intentionally for children in a different way as they got older, opened the door for nutrition, for this side of your life to come into play. Speak directly to that mom who's stressed out, who's busy, has made her is doing the best that she can, but doesn't have the knowledge that you have right now and doesn't have that door open. What do you want to say in particular to her about why or what you've noticed and why this is crucial in your life?
Yeah. Well, I do want to say, first of all, you really are doing the best you can. You are killing it. And so you are you're doing it, you're killing it. You have a family to raise, you have a lot going on. There's a lot of variables and things being thrown at you. And so you are doing the best that you can, which is all anybody can do. And I would say also, while you are caring for your family, it's ultra important that you yourself do not fall by the wayside. Because if you do not have the energy that you need to lead your family, to serve your family well, to raise your children well, if you are suffering, you're not fueling your body because you are forget to eat, or you're just eating the leftover chicken nuggets and goldfish, off the kids' plate, then your kids, I hate to sound so dramatic, but your kids are not getting your best you. Because if you are underfueled and you are living in stress mode, and part of that comes through like when we are underfueled, which a lot of moms are, and we're just running and gunning and we're not thinking about food. We're thinking about what we can grab really quickly. When we are underfueled in that way, it adds to the stress that we feel because our body is registering stress when it's starving and tired. And so, for you to be the best mom that you can be, the best wife that you can be, if you're married, the best employee or boss or friend or sister or whatever it may be, you have to take care of yourself. And I think sometimes we can wear it as a badge of honor that, oh, I'm just so tired. I have so much going on. I'm so busy. I can't do it all. We can kind of martyr ourselves in that regard and wear it as this badge of pride when really it's like, that's not a good thing. It's not a good thing to be super stressed and tired all the time, and to start moving in the right direction doesn't even have to take a whole life change, but it has to start with prioritizing caring for yourself and the body God gave you, frankly, and to steward that well.
Yeah. What does she stand to gain by listening to this conversation?
Well, hopefully she stands to gain that there are some simple things that she can do to prioritize her own health and physical health, and that then carries over into every other aspect of health. Hopefully she'll come away with some practical advice and some helpful educational pieces that are not going to be overwhelming, but that she can actually do. And maybe a mindset shift that prioritizing health doesn't have to be, and nutrition doesn't have to be this overwhelming thing. You can baby step your way to the real progress and feel better. I think a lot of women, a lot of moms in particular, don't feel good. And I'm just like, if we could just do some things to help us start feeling better and have more energy, the impact of that and the reverberations of that would be so great.
Well said. What was your baby step moment? So how did the 1% progress that you saw, or the light bulb moment where this became more than a priority, but, really something to build your life around?
Yeah. After I had my second child, I was in this place of I wanted to make healthier decisions for my family. And I started with my first child, I made all of his baby food. And I was steaming sweet potatoes and blending avocados, and it was horrible, but it was something that I felt like I could do. I knew I needed to do something. Frankly, my mom was sick with cancer for the majority of my childhood, and she lived a relatively healthy lifestyle, but she was also, what's the right word? She was, diet culture at the time got her. It was the time of Jenny Craig and fat free, sugar free, everything. And our food started to be loaded with chemicals and things like that. And so she was one of many who yo-yo dieted. And so I knew her as my mom as just regularly being on some kind of diet. And at the same time, she was battling cancer, and I knew she was exploring some nutritional aspects. And I think at one point she even tried to get our family to eat more whole, healthy foods. And we just revolted. I mean, we were not about it, and because we wanted what tasted good. And so as I got older, and then my mom passed away when she was 40 years old, and now I realize exactly how young that is. I wanted to really take some steps. Cancer runs in my family, and multiple types of cancer on both sides. And I knew that if I had a genetic predisposition to cancer, if that was the case, then I needed to do the best I could for my family to not exacerbate that risk. And so to do our part to care for ourselves. And so that was where, and then it just amplified as I had kids. And I'm like, now I'm responsible for these little human beings. And it starts now, what I put in their body. So I just started doing lots of research on food ingredients and things like that. And I did a Whole30, and where you cut out basically everything processed. And I started to read food labels and learn what different things were. And that was what I did for years and years and years. We watched the amount of sugar that we ate. We started cooking more at home. We paid a lot of attention to food labels and things like that. And we felt good for the most part. And at the same time, I was a runner. I'd never been an athlete growing up. I started running when I went to college. I found that I really loved that. I also found that I think based on even, watching my mom and some other of our family members kind of yo-yo on the diet train, I had developed I did not have an eating disorder, but I did have some disordered eating. I was obsessed with what was coming in and out of my mouth, and did I run enough to burn it off? And then I would find myself emotionally eating, and ultimately coping with the sickness that my mom was dealing with in some ways.
Well, one, I can relate to that part of your story as well. Growing up as a child of the 80s, I mean, that's what I remember, Tab and, all these diet products. But as you started to dive into the labels, what surprised you the most? What did you notice that you just thought, this is mind-boggling?
Yeah, that how much sugar is in everything. And truly, I can't point to a study right now, but the more we learn about sugar, the more we learn about how toxic it can be, and how the disease feeds off of sugar. It is fuel for disease. And sugar is in everything. because it tastes good. It makes things taste better. And which, how nefarious is that?
Actually, to interject a moment, I actually, when I was preparing for our conversation, I read a statistic that said 74% of an American's diet is made up of processed food. To your point, sugar and salt are the primary additives that people may not know are there. And then that said, that was linked to 66% increased risk for heart disease, which I don't know if that is still the number one killer, but at one time it was the number one killer, particularly with women, right?
Yeah, I believe it. I have not heard that exact statistic, but I 100% believe it. When things are loaded with sugar. So then what we've done, we've become aware of, okay, we need to watch sugar. So then what we've done though is we've substituted sugar for fake sugar and chemical sugar. And so we've added aspartame is sweet and low is aspartame, which is horrible. And there's sucralose, which is another sugar substitute that's a chemical that can cause real inflammation. And it also tastes exponentially sweeter than sugar does. And so we are just perpetuating this addiction by now substituting the sugar that we know is harmful for sugar chemicals, which are just as, if not more harmful, just in a different way. So we're replacing one evil with another, is essentially what we're doing. And so we are chemicaling up our processed food, putting additives in, stripping nutrients out, adding things back in, coloring things, making them taste good, making them extra palatable. And it comes down to money, and what sells. But that was the thing that was the most shocking to me when I started looking at labels, was how much sugar, and now sugar substitutes or alcohols or synthetics are in our food, that they're even starting to hide it in naming them differently so that we don't recognize them as sugar. Yeah, absolutely. And so that was the thing that was the most shocking to me. And then now it's, as we learn more, there are some other things that are just in everything, like carrageenan, for example. It's an emulsifier it's in Bluebell ice cream. It makes ice cream thicker. And it's in a lot of protein shakes and milkshakes and things like that. And it's a known carcinogen, but we don't know. And, there's the research coming out about food dyes and things like that. And so we are just slowly and unknowingly killing ourselves through the processed foods that we eat. And I at that point wanted something different for my family.
So when was it time? So you start digging into this, and I'm insanely curious about this because there's so much information out there. It's overwhelming. So how you made your way through the rabbit hole to make sense of all of this, I'm super curious about. But then in part two, how did this become Blueprint Fitness? How did this become a business for you?
Yeah. So after I started with looking at food ingredients and changing the quality of the food that we ate, I was still, however, I had some fitness goals. I guess I would say I wanted to be skinny. That was what I wanted. I wanted to be skinny. How do I get skinny? And how do I lose baby weight now and keep it off? And to me, that meant I need to eat less food, but now I'm starving. Or maybe I need to try, the latest, like it was Atkins and then it was keto and then it was the paleo diet. And I need to cut out whole groups of food from my diet. But that doesn't feel good because I love bread and bread is delicious. And my willpower isn't that strong. I will eat the bread. I will eat it. And so I was in this just really restrictive mindset. And, when we restrict ourselves, like what you want, what you can't have,
Yeah, it
that's
almost
human
opens the
nature.
floodgate, right?
Yes. And for me, it did. It opened the floodgate. And so I did a program in 2022. I was kind of like, I wanted something different. I had tried all of the things. The scale was my measurement of success. Whatever number the scale said determined whether or not I was making progress. And I was making and able to kind of maintain, I guess, a certain scale weight, but I still didn't feel great in my skin. And I knew that there was something missing. And so I did a program in, I think, 2022 called the Faster Way to Fat Loss. And it's a program where there's a coach and It's group coaching, essentially. And it was there that I began to learn about macronutrients. And I had read all the food labels and I knew about ingredients, but I did not understand macronutrients. And they are the biggest nutrients that make up all of our food. And so I started to learn about what protein does and what carbohydrates do and what fats do and how our metabolism works and how when we starve ourselves and we focus on a calories in calories out, which that's the mantra of diet culture is calories in calories out. I need to burn more calories than I'm eating, which is true. However, it's only the tip of the iceberg as to what really results in true fat loss. To do calories in and calories out, you first have to make sure that your metabolism is firing properly. Otherwise, you are eating less calories and starving yourself, and your metabolism, which we say is the way and efficiency with which your body burns energy, your metabolism slows down because it's starving. And so it's got to hold on to everything that's coming in because it doesn't know where its next meal is going to come from. And so I started to learn about eating more food and strength training. And I'd never wanted to strength train before because I didn't want to quote bulk up and I didn't want to get big. But I just started to learn about muscle and I decided and how we need muscle. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to do this and see what happens. And so I started eating more food and this program gave me macros to hit. It gave me a protein goal, a carb goal, a fat goal. It gave me strength workouts to do and then a level of accountability in the group coaching to hit it. And I really made some progress. I got stronger. I felt better. My energy got better as I was eating more food. They encouraged us not to weigh on the scale because they were like, muscle is denser and it weighs more than fat. And so you're going to see the number either stay the same or maybe go up a little bit on the scale. And it's going to cause you to have this unnecessary mental battle because if the scale is the measure of success for you, then you're going to miss all the way your body is changing and the way you feel and those signs of real progress.
Yeah,
And
let's on that for a second too. Tell me about that because that's a real mind shift uh
Mhm.
difference in especially if the goal and again as women society helps shape that conversation as well like to be skinny and thin is the ideal and
Yeah.
if you're used to and on repeat making sure that that scale is what defines you you know how much self-loathing we take into consideration for the day based on that number how did you what were your experiences like shifting the mindset away from that.
It is a process for sure. And I really battled with the scale for a long time and that number defined how I felt about me and the progress I was making. And so taking it off the table opened my eyes to see some different things. Like I saw some definition in my bicep and I felt my clothes fitting better. And I took measurements and instead of weighing on the scale and I went by how I felt and by how my clothes fit. And the initial structure of this program is 6 weeks long. You weigh at the beginning and then you weigh at the end. By the end of the 6 weeks, I felt like, "Oh, I'm definitely losing weight. Like, my clothes are fitting better. I can see my tricep." My husband is commenting on how he can see, like, muscles coming through and I wasn't bulking, and it's actually really hard to bulk as a woman unless you're using steroids or something or testosterone. When I got on the scale at the end of that 6 weeks and you take progress photos. You take before photos and then after photos. I took my before photos, my after photos. The differences were stunning to me, and in the good way. I was so pleased with my results. When I stepped on the scale, no change.
No way.
No change in the 6 weeks.
Wow.
And I'll be honest, I was discouraged. And then it was my husband who had to go, "Why are you discouraged? Look at your photos, look at your measurements. You look amazing. And that number has got you down." And he said, "What's happened is you've built muscle and your body composition is changing." And so I really had to wrestle with that for a little bit and get curious about why that number defined so much for me because the other results were undeniable.
Yeah.
And that's the battle for most women is learning to the scale only tells one part of the story, but our culture wants it to tell the whole story. But the scale only tells you what the total mass of your body weighs at any given moment. It doesn't tell you how much of that is muscle mass. It doesn't tell you how much of that is water retention that you might even be carrying because of stress.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell you how your sleep was. It doesn't tell you it's not an it doesn't tell you that you ate a really sodium heavy meal the night before and so your body's hanging on a little bit. It doesn't tell you that you're in a normal hormone fluctuation that causes the scale to go up and down a little bit. It only tells you how much your body weighs at any given moment. And that is so deceiving, especially when we're aiming for a number on the scale without building muscle and burning fat. You're actually setting yourself up for and are at risk for losing muscle and bone density, which is what we need as we age. So focusing on solely the scale when really it's only one part of the picture is more detrimental than anything because I think it keeps us stuck in the diet cycle and in the skinny cycle when actually the way we were built is to be strong and to have muscle on our bodies and to feel good and to have good energy and to not starve ourselves. So that program really helped me to understand that and when I looked at the scale and was discouraged, and my husband encouraged me, I bounced back really quickly. I was
Yeah.
like, "Okay." But it's something I had to keep before me and remember, and also something that I very regularly help my clients keep before them and remember as well, because the struggle is real, for sure.
Do you think that you would have been able to adapt your mindset without, the intercession of your husband? In other words, do you think that it is likely that we change our mindset without a form of coaching?
I think it would be very hard because first you have to know to look for these different variables and the different indicators of progress and success than just the scale. And you can find that information out there, but still for the most part, I think if your algorithm is one where fitness stuff comes across your radar, there is more talk about different body compositions and how two people can weigh the exact same amount, but one with muscle on her body can look a lot slimmer and then the other one without a lot of muscle on her body. Or even better is there's your side by sides out there where let's say a woman weighs 150 pounds and the person next to her weighs 130 pounds, but the person who weighs 150 pounds looks much smaller and has smaller measurements than the person who weighs 130 pounds. And the difference is muscle. And so if you can catch wind of these things, and I did have my faster way to fat loss coach in there encouraging us, like, look for these other changes, these non-scale victories is what we call them. Look for these other changes. But I still needed his voice in my life to help me remember on the daily. And so I think it would be not that it can't be done, but I think it would be challenging if you don't have the right resources and encouragement in front of you. And that doesn't have to come through a coach, but you do need someone in your life who can help speak to that and encourage you in that way.
Yeah, I think you make a great point because I think it's very hard to do that in isolation.
Yeah.
Just to the point, if you're it's easy to go back to what cultural norms are surround us, and
Mhm.
the information out there is so confusing.
Yeah.
Okay, so you obviously saw progress and I'm assuming that kind of opened your eyes to a lot of, potential, but again, how did this, new lifestyle and these new transformations in your life shift to building a business around it?
Yeah. So I would say after I did the faster way to fat loss, I was kind of on my own. Like, do I stay here? Do I eat this amount of protein, carbs, and fats for the rest of my life? How do I know from here? Like, what am I looking for from here? And that was where I felt that the help was lacking and the support was lacking for me personally and what my body needed because the program was structured where I had personalized macronutrient goals for myself But still at the same time, everyone in the program was doing the same thing at the same time. And I started to feel a little dissonance with that for myself. And I just plateaued. I wasn't making any more body composition progress. I didn't know what to change. I didn't know if I needed to eat more protein or less protein. I didn't know if I needed to raise my calories or lower my calories. And the program at the time that I was a part of wasn't fully set up for me to get that help. And I thought, also, I need somebody to get in here and tell me exactly what to do for my body. And I had seen my husband who was willing to experiment on his own body, and which I was not willing to do, and to research and learn about different phases our bodies need to go through to build muscle and burn fat, and how our metabolisms adapt and what you need to do when that happens. And he was starting to give me some advice, but I was just like, I don't know that I trust you on this, dude. It's like, you can't, it's like, you just be my husband. I don't think you can be my coach. So I was nearing 40 going, okay, well, I guess this is kind of it because I don't know where to go. Like everything I see on social media is really confusing. And I know the macronutrients are really the way to go to make sure I'm getting enough, but I don't know how I know if I'm getting enough. I don't know exactly what I'm looking for anymore. And I don't know where to turn. And so then my husband had figured out a lot on his own and had made some significant, he was always the skinny guy who could never build muscle. And he got jacked and was able to build so much muscle and went through this complete transformation. And then he came across a personalized one-on-one nutrition coaching program. And he said, Bree, I think you need this. I think you need someone with the education, the expertise to get in your business, to tell you what to do, to hold you accountable to it, and for you to just trust that process, putting yourself in someone else's hands. And so I looked up this company, hopped on a consultation call with them. I knew immediately, okay, like they spoke my language. They understood where I was coming from. They told me, no, this doesn't have to be how it is. There is no science that says your metabolism just slows down when you turn 40. There's no science to that. Most likely what happens when you turn 40 and things quote get harder is it's less about hormones and your age, and it's more about the accumulation of what we've been doing to our bodies for the last decades, finally now catching up to us. And that was actually really empowering for me to hear because there's nothing I can do about my age. There's
Right.
not much I can do about my hormones. That's a really powerless place to be. But when I hear the science is true and you can make some changes and get your body restored and your metabolism firing again and it going in the direction that you want it to go, you can get exactly where you want to get. It's not downhill from here. You can continue to get better with age. And I was like, okay. So I started working with my coach and it changed my life. I mean, he like having the regular accountability, the regular weekly encouragement for and it was macro based. So he gave me protein, carb, and fat goals. He gave me some activity goals. He gave me some workouts to do. And my body started to change. Now, it took probably 6 months before anyone in the outside world said, Bree, what are you doing? Like, you're looking great. Like, you look strong and what's going on? And and I was like, well, I've been working hard for 6 months. So it's about time somebody noticed.
For those changes. So again, hear you that, that takes some time before the outside starts to notice, but what did you
Yeah.
notice on the inside?
So on the inside, my energy was so much better. I could tell I was stronger. I was doing these strength workouts and was able to progressively lift more weight. My body was changing. I was eating more food. My measurements were reducing. The scale was going down as I was eating more food and not running anymore, not doing a ton of cardio. Food noise was gone. I think there's an emotional tie to food, the thinking about food all the time and gosh, I'm never gonna like food FOMO even like, oh, I'm at this party and I gotta eat all of this because I may never have this ever again. And this is delicious. And oh, it's the holidays. I gotta go crazy because I'm never gonna have pumpkin pie ever again. Or it's my birthday. This day is special. So I need to do X, Y, and Z, or we're out of town and I can't, I can't eat well when I'm out of town. So I guess I'll just like throw it all out the window. That just kind of noise mentality surrounding food my coach helped me understand, no, like you can live your life and reach your goals, and you need to track what's going into your mouth, because if you don't track it, you can't measure it. If you don't measure it, you can't change it. And then actually this is can be a really empowering thing to have protein, carb, and fat goals and treat it like a budget. He was like, you can eat any food you want, fit it in your budget, in your macro budget. And you have, this many carbs to eat in a day. You have this much fat to eat in a day, this much protein to eat in a day. The world is your oyster. Go fill it however you want. Now, you want to prioritize mostly whole foods and 20%, whatever. But there's room for that chocolate if you want. If you want to have a donut every day, have a donut every day.
No way. So what did your meal plan, the early meal plan look like based
So
on your goals?
now sugar for me was always the thing that if I was going to go overboard on something, it was going to be sugar. And so my coach encouraged me, I want you to plan to have something chocolate every day. And I was like, every day? He was like, yes. So one of the first things I would do is like, I would plan my chocolate thing I was going to have. I would plug it into my little tracker, and then I would start to build my day around that. And so I would so then I started to learn and read food labels in a different way to learn, okay, oatmeal, a half a cup of oatmeal has 30 carbs in it. Okay. So if I eat 30 carbs and my carbs for the day are 180, I still have 150 carbs left to play with. Okay, let's see, what other foods do I like? So I started plugging in the different foods that I enjoyed eating so that I wouldn't feel restricted, so that I could then prioritize what I wanted to have. And so sometimes it did look like I'm going to have the Chick-fil-A sandwich. Okay, well, actually, if I have the Chick-fil-A sandwich and the Chick-fil-A fries, that's not good for my macro budget. What if I swap one of those and do the grilled chicken sandwich, but I really want the fries? Okay, that works. And so it was a lot of just like starting to swap things out, but I didn't need to overhaul the actual foods that I ate. It just meant I needed to prioritize what I was eating when, and it didn't make sense for me to have a brownie and a donut on a given day. I'll have a brownie this one day, I'll have a donut the next day. It doesn't make sense for me to have a grande latte every day, but some days I want that. So I'm going to plug that in, and then I'm going to build the rest of my day around it. And so that was actually really empowering to me to know I can eat the same foods that I've been eating, but my mindset around it is different. I'm prioritizing it differently. And I'm kind of putting a puzzle or a budget together based on what I want to eat and what my family eats, and whether or not we have a dinner party to go to or whether or not we're going to go eat out. I can do this in any context.
It almost sounds sickening fun. You know what
Yeah.
I'm thinking? Because again, going back to just what we know about women, I mean, how many times have you been to dinner or to lunch with a girlfriend?
Right.
You guys are trying, and if you're somewhat fitness conscious, you try to make healthy decisions, but you really want the extra piece of bread, or you really want the burger, but you get a salad instead. All of this nonsense, like you said, food noise. And
Yes.
then to have something open up to you that says, "You can have all of it. We're just going to do it differently." That feels empowering just listening to you say that.
I felt so empowered, and I still do. I still feel like there is nothing that I can't enjoy. And what I've noticed at the same time, though, is that what I want to enjoy is different from what I used to enjoy. As my body has changed, as I've gotten stronger, I've noticed more how certain foods make me feel. And so sometimes a greasy hamburger still sounds good to me. And if it does, and I can put it into my plan, I will. Most often, it doesn't anymore because it messes me up and I feel sluggish. And so that's been the other byproduct of experimenting with the different macro makeups of food. It's like you can get, 70 grams of fat and 100 something carbs and 50 grams of protein and a Big Mac at McDonald's and some French fries. But that's going to feel very different in your gut than 6 ounces of chicken and a sweet potato, and maybe put some butter on the sweet potato because you want some good fat, maybe a little brown sugar. And that's going to be, and a vegetable on the side and a roll. It's going to be probably about the same macro makeup as that McDonald's meal, but it's going to feel a lot better in your body. And your body's going to use it for better fuel than that processed junk.
So let's talk about who you're building Blueprint Fitness Lab for. So it sounds like your personal experience transformed this into this business that you could then put someone else at the same experience that you had. So who is that ideal person?
Yeah. For me. So in short, but
That's what businesses are,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, but truly to make sure I answer your original question, like how did this happen? It was after people started coming and going to my husband and I going, "What are you guys doing?" It started with, "Well, do you think you could help me?" And so we started helping some friends like get on board with their nutrition. And I still had my coach at the same time. Some were not ready for one-on-one coaching, but some just wanted a little bit of help. And then one day my husband was like, "Hey, what would you think if I actually got certified in this and could officially have some clients just as a side business?" And I was like, "That makes so much sense. Yes, you should do that." So he got into it and he got his certification. And again, he's a researcher, a learner. He was all about the coursework and things like that. It's just not really my lane. And he got into it and he was like, "Oh, Bree, you would love this." And I said, I don't know." And I said, "Okay, what if I get my certification not so I can take on clients, but maybe so I can help you on the like marketing and content side, put resources together for your clients and things like that." He said, "Okay, sure, sure." Well, so I started with the coursework. I found I really did love it. And then as a part of the coursework, you take on some guinea pig clients so they can see what you'll do with some clients. And it was there that I realized I love this. This is so fun and so amazing and so fun to see it work for someone else. Like to really put them through the process to go, I know this worked for me. Will it work for this young mom who's 30? Will it work for this woman who is postmenopause? I don't know. Yes, it does. And so then we just started to build from there. And it truly is built for people like me who they have maybe tried everything and nothing has really gotten them to where they want, and they've had to restrict or yo-yo, or they've been running their bodies into the ground and they just want to feel better. It's for a young mom who's in the thick of it and is postpartum. And I'm just talking about the female side. I mean, my husband does the exact same thing for his male clients. It's for those who want to be able to play on the floor with their grandkids. It's for those who know or believe in their heart and want to know also intellectually that things just don't go downhill as you get older. Those who want to and are willing to avoid a quick fix and do something that works and is sustainable for the long haul, whether their goal is I want to run races or I want to have abs or I want to lose 20 pounds and burn fat or I want more energy. I know that covers a broad audience, but that's who we're built for.
You said as part of the certification, you had to have some guinea pig clients. I'm curious, like what transformation did you witness early on?
So with one of my guinea pigs, it was so fun. Typically where I start with somebody is most people are under eating. And so typically what we do is we start to restore the metabolism by increasing their food. And that's freaky for women in particular. That's a freaky thing because it doesn't make sense. What do you mean you want to eat? You want me to eat more food and I'm going to get where I want to get? That's the opposite of what I hear. But this client trusted me. She was like, "Let's do it. I'll do whatever you tell me to do," which is the best. And so she had 20 pounds that she wanted to lose. She started eating more food and immediately started dropping a half a pound to a pound a week. And she came to me eating about 1,500 calories. We were able to get her up to about 2,200 calories and switch her over from lots of cardio to just strength training. And she dropped her 20 pounds without ever even needing to go into a calorie deficit. And that's not everyone. That's not me. My body does not respond that way. She's what I would call a hyper responder, where the body is like, "Thank you. We are finally getting fueled so we can let all this go."
Yeah.
For others, they eat more food and don't gain a pound, but they don't lose, but they don't gain, and they start to build muscle, which who doesn't want to eat more food and not gain any weight? And then there are other people who, and this is more the category that I fall into, where you start eating more food and putting on muscle, and the scale does go up a little bit. But then after the metabolism is restored, we go into a true fat burning phase. And that's when the fat starts to come off and what you've been building underneath starts to show through. And so that was really, really fun to see. I saw that in both my young client that I was just mentioning, and then also another client post menopause was my other guinea pig. And I just wanted to see if it would work on women in both of those phases. And it absolutely did. And so that was when I was like, okay, the science is right. And that was really fun.
What did they share? What did they share with you?
They were stunned. I mean, both of them were like, I cannot believe I just never thought that I could eat more and do less intense working out and one, feel the way that I feel energetic and really good and sleep better and have more energy and recover better and also have to buy new pant sizes. It just blew their minds that they could be eating more and losing weight or truly burning fat, not just losing weight, but burning fat was what we were doing. And so they, I'm still, one of them is still a client, the other one is not, but we keep in touch. And that this is my second year of coaching. And a year later, the client who's not with me, but who dropped about 20 pounds has been able to maintain that and is eating the same amount of food that she was when she was working with me and still doing it and feels better than ever, had another baby and did what she did. Baby weight came off. I mean, just amazing. Just really amazing. It's fun to hear.
So you have these exciting transformation stories, which we know is in any business is the key to really growing. But in this show, we always like to talk about like what the depths of building a business around, and in particular, a passion. It makes it a joy, so that we call it work, and it is work, but it's also fuel to motivation to keep going. But talk to me a little bit about what has the reality of building a business around this passion looked like in the day to day? What's the most difficult thing that you're facing right now as you take Blueprint to the next level?
I would say it's our limited capacity. It's just my husband and he has a full-time job. I still have another part-time job and we love those jobs, want to stay with them. And so the question before us is regularly, what does this need to be? And what truly is our client capacity? How do we know when we're there so that we're still serving the clients that we have well and that we're not burning ourselves out and that we're not taking on too much, but that also we can still kind of innovate and make our business us. And a lot of nutrition and fitness businesses, they're trying to be influencers and they're like at the gym working out, and they're posting the pictures of themselves and their skivvies and whatnot. And that's not us. We are normal people who are doing this for normal people. And so the question continues to be, what will this continue to look like moving forward? We love one-on-one coaching and we want to build that to the capacity that we currently have. And so the question is, what is that capacity? Not sure. And then the other question is, once we reach that capacity, are there other formats of coaching that we could offer that maybe are unexplored in this nutrition coaching space? And there's a big question mark on that right now. And so we're still new. This is our second year. We know we're not at capacity yet. We feel ourselves getting there and we're looking for the then what? How else do we need to innovate? And what a great problem that would be, the shift formats a little bit or think outside the box a little bit more. But that's kind of where we are right now. Does that and some of our great challenges, but challenges nonetheless. Does this format work? Do we need to change anything about how we're doing what we're doing? Is it working for everyone? And are we able to serve people well? And right now I think we are, but I want to make sure that we're able to sustain it.
For anyone that's listening that is not really familiar with what the process looks like, can you describe what Blueprint Fitness Lab does from start to finish?
So it is personalized one-on-one virtual coaching. So everything that we do happens online. And so when someone onboards with us, we start with the discovery call and hear their goals and their hang-ups, any medical issues that they have, any foods that they don't like to eat, a full discovery call where we discuss their goals and whether or not we'd be a right fit. Then if we determine that we are a right fit, we have an intake form that just gives us a longer history and back end information on where they're coming from and what their challenges might be. And then from there, we develop their initial blueprint. And so for some people, and the blueprint, the thing that is consistent about the blueprint is it is an online dashboard Google sheet, essentially. I try to make it pretty and colorful because I'm not like a big spreadsheets person. But it is a spreadsheet that's our dashboard that every client gets one. And then the customization within that is what goes on to an individual's blueprint. Some people come in and they are ready for me to give them a protein goal, a carbohydrate goal, and a fat goal. Other people, their first goal is let's start to eat breakfast and let's get you a protein forward breakfast and this is what it's going to look like. So this week eat this breakfast every day and check a box on your spreadsheet that you did it. So so it looks different for everyone and we build from there. Then they track 4 days worth of food so we can get an idea of what they are eating without changing anything. And so they just log food for us. That gives us a starting point. Then we deliver them their blueprint, where they get their dashboard spreadsheet. They get an introductory video outlining what their plan is going to be, what their first goals are. And then, we're always available if there's any troubleshooting needs or anything like that. And then everyone has a check-in day. Every client does. And on their check-in day, let's say if your check-in day is Thursday, on your dashboard, there's a link to a personalized form that's yours that you go and you fill out and you talk about what you're proud of from the week. You talk about what you struggled with during the week. You talk about how your workouts were. If you did workouts, you talk about your stress levels and how your sleep was and how we can help you get better, or if you have any questions for us, if you're traveling and we need to know about that so we can help you navigate traveling well. You fill out that form every week. And then, so if a client checks in on Thursday, on Friday, sometime during the day, we will send them a video back via email that walks through their dashboard and their form side by side. And then we're pulling out our coaching insights. And a lot of times it is, you're doing better than you think you are because we are our own worst critic. And so we always look to pull out wins and celebrate. And then we give new goals for the week and you're off to the races again. And so that's the weekly format. And then we're available during the week for, a text photo from a restaurant or a grocery store with an SOS. Like, what do I get here? I don't know. Some clients, the other personalized part is that we can even cater the process a little bit. There's our foundations, which is the spreadsheet and the video. But then some clients like to have once a month touch base where we talk on the phone or we meet for coffee if they're local and we just spend some extra time troubleshooting. So there's room for all of that. The personalization is in your custom blueprint, but it's also in how you best like to be coached.
I love that. Kind of coming full circle to what you said earlier about, the woman who's busy on the go. That's where my mind jumps to. It's like, this sounds like it is actually tailored for her life, kind of on demand, giving challenges, celebrating wins in her own time and her own space. So I think that's beautiful that
Yeah.
you built that. Bree, we have to have you on for a second episode because we just didn't cover it all that I would like to get to. So I'm going to ask you on the spot. I would love for you to come back and do a part 2 to this where we dive in more to the blueprint and kind of unpack that. But to be mindful of your time, I want to, we always end the segment of the show with a couple of questions. So
Okay.
I to ask you these.
Okay.
If I were to hand you a magic wand that could eliminate one challenge in, how you're building this business and kind of getting to the next step, it sounds like the market's definitely there, the need is definitely there, but you being able to show up with intentionality and I hear that is a big part of your mission. So if I gave you the magic wand to make one of those challenges disappear, what would it be?
Such a great question because I'm thinking so many things. So I think, and it is unfinished business. Okay, I like that. So I think, going back to our capacity and, I want my capacity to be mostly spent with interfacing with clients and making the back end really easy. And so I would probably wave a magic wand over back end systems and processes and streamline them for us just a little bit so that some more things are even hard to articulate what they would be, but it could be automated so that our time could be well spent interfacing with clients and onboarding new ones and being able to do the building work that we would want to do and making connections to people that could then connect us to future clients. And so I'd probably get in the back end and clean it up a little bit, make it smoother or a little more automated, or get a coaching app, or something like that that would streamline some things for us. And I
Yeah.
think I probably could if I had more time.
Well, Bree, if we were having this conversation 12 months from now, what excites you the most? What would you be the most proud of having done in your own business?
I would be so I coming from never imagined myself owning a business, and my husband and I not imagining that for ourselves, to in 12 months to have a business that's been on the ground for 3 years would be just an accomplishment in and of itself. I At 12 months from now, I hope to know what our capacity is and to be at capacity. I mean, that would be a win, and to just be humming along. And that's pretty simple, but I think that's it. I would be thrilled
Yeah.
with just that. Yeah.
Yeah. Something that comes up a lot on the show is, when's enough? And I think that that's the beauty of entrepreneurship, is that you get to decide,
Yes.
what that is. And that looks a little different for everyone. But it sounds like, you've built a business not only around, I call it a lifestyle business because it is built around your life, but it was built for your life
Yeah.
in particular. And I think that that's so compelling. That's such a compelling story. So, Bree, final question. This is a tradition on our show, and this is kind of a hypothetical scenario. So, imagine that Blueprint Fitness Lab becomes as big as your wildest imagination, goes national. You've got all the automation to make things easy. You still get to show up and serve the people that you're so desperately want to help create change that you've seen in your own life and in your family. So, you've done it all. However, you cannot take any of the record of the win. So we can't take your spreadsheet to track your own progress in business if we were to look at it that way. This podcast episode goes away. The marketing that you've done, the testimonials, they go away. But what you can do is leave 3 pieces of advice for anyone who's looking to try to fill your very large shoes and footsteps. What would your 3 pieces of advice to any business owner looking to try to accomplish something great be?
I would say to a business owner some of the same things that I tell my clients, which is don't look for the quick fix. Do the hard work, the intentional work, and the consistent work. 2, trust the process and let the process play out. Don't jump ship too soon because you're probably on the brink of the breakthrough that you've been wanting and hoping for. And 3, have fun. Remember to have fun and enjoy yourself along the way, and remember why you started doing what you're doing. The why is really important to keep it in front of you.
Bree, thank you so much. I want to acknowledge you for the way that you have inspired me just by having this conversation of just letting go of some of the, I don't know how to say it best, but some of the pressure that in particular women face when it comes to health, fitness, and nutrition. Also, want to acknowledge you for the way that, again, you are teaching the next generation in your own family, but it sounds like beyond that. And for the way that you are showing up for your clients every day, it shows through. So I want to acknowledge you for that. And what parting words do you have for our audience?
Get out there and fuel yourself well. Take care of yourself. You are worth being taken care of. And there's some really small but really effective things that you can do to do that. Eat, sleep, walk, drink lots of water.
Love it. Great words. You guys, we're going to link Bree's information in the show notes so that you have access to the website. And I'm assuming we can connect with you via LinkedIn, or what other channels are you active on so we can
So
engage?
we have our Instagram is just at Blueprint Fitness Lab. We're always, available on there if anyone wants to reach out. And then my email address, I love to connect with people that way. So it's Bree at blueprintfitnesslab.com would be the best ways to get hold of me.
Perfect. Well, we'll definitely make sure to keep that information linked in the show notes. And thank you for tuning in to this episode of Unfinished Business. We'll see you next time.